My, what a difference a week makes. Are you ready to get your stack on, you sexy sat stackers? This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. Nothing on this podcast should be construed as financial advice. All views expressed on this podcast are solely the opinions of the host and or any guests that we might have from time to time. Nothing on this podcast should be construed as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or to follow a particular investing strategy. Greetings from a not quite as sunny as it could be undisclosed location in Central Florida. It is Wednesday, November 10th, 2021, and that means it is DCA Wednesday. We're getting a slightly later start than usual, although that seems to be a common occurrence more often than not these days, but for a good reason. I had the privilege of watching SpaceX's most recent launch to the International Space Station this evening, the Crew-3 mission, and while it was a little soggy and cloudy and had been raining most of the day, it was a pretty damn beautiful launch nonetheless. I'll go ahead and include a link to our launch video in the show notes as an aside note for those of you who are interested. But back to the business at hand, and that is stacking sats. Just last night online, I came across two posts. One asking the usual question, is it too late? Did I miss out? And another saying they only had $50 and they were wondering if it was worth their time investing such a small amount of money. That is precisely why we have been doing this podcast. As you know, we've been investing $20, only $20, every week since July to test out the hypothesis of dollar cost averaging. And while we are in the middle of a bull run, and there can be no doubt about that since we just set a new all-time record high just yesterday, so much for the this bull run is over narrative that people were pushing not too long ago. But that being said, that's why we're here. And while it's easy to look like a genius in a bull run, the saying tends to hold true that time in the markets beats timing the markets every time it's tried. Famously, the most valuable portfolios are those of dead people who have made their investments and then either died or forgot they existed, and then 20 years later someone discovers their portfolio and it's outperformed just about any other index or investment fund that they could have chosen. Hopefully that same theory will hold true in Bitcoin, and if you believe like I believe that number go up technology is firmly in play, then over time, dollar cost averaging will be the strategy that hopefully pays off for us. And just before we get too far ahead of ourselves, what is dollar cost averaging? Well, dollar cost averaging is an investment strategy where you invest your money in equal portions at regular intervals regardless of price. We chose $20 and we chose Wednesdays. However, you can pick whatever dollar amount that you feel comfortable with and whatever time frame you feel comfortable with. Some people dollar cost average daily, some weekly, some every paycheck, some monthly. But again, you do you. Pick a dollar amount that you feel comfortable with. Again, never investing money that you need to live. Never invest any money that you can't afford to lose. Hopefully, by following along, you can take into account our experience and use that to form your own opinion. Real quick, a look at the stats, though. We are currently at a block height of 709,166, and Bitcoin is valued at about $64,590 a Bitcoin. And that is down just slightly from the all-time record high we hit of $69,010 just yesterday. It is currently 1,548 Moscow time. Or $1 will get you 1,548 sats for those of you who weren't following along on that little Twitter escapade. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Once again, we're going to use the Cash App. I keep promising myself that I'm going to try out the Strike app for one of these stacks, but it's just so easy to use the Cash App. And because they still let you withdraw my Bitcoin for free to my hardware wallet, the 2.25% fee they charge me for investing is pretty much usually offset by not having to pay the mining fee. So we're going to use Cash App. As usual, I don't keep any money on the Cash App, so I'm going to add $20. And that is just about instant because I have a debit card linked to my Cash App. It would be instant if I was on the right page. So we're going to add $20. And there it is. We have $20 in the Cash App. We're going to click on the Bitcoin logo in the bottom right-hand corner, click on the Buy button. And again, as I always explain, Cash App will let you automate this. They'll let you set up automated one-time buys or even put in a limit order where you can specify a specific price and it won't purchase the Bitcoin for you unless Bitcoin hits your target price. But I like buying my Bitcoin manually. There's something about hitting $20 and hitting next that feels more real. Feels like you're actively involved, like you're really stacking something. For a lot of people, their biggest problem is the lack of tangibility of Bitcoin, that it's out there in the ether, that it's not something they can put in the palm of their hand. And maybe by purchasing it, I'm satisfying a little bit of that human nature. But it could also be frustrating, so you might find it easier just to automate that stack. You certainly will not forget. You won't find yourself in the middle of the night like I am here on a Wednesday, rushing to get my stack done before it's no longer even DCA Wednesday. But I digress. It says we need to confirm our purchase, and we're going to make a purchase of $20, which is really going to buy us $19.55 worth of Bitcoin because there's a 45-cent fee that Cash App is charging. And that's going to get us 30,261 sats. Click confirm. And if I weren't job owning so much, that purchase would have already been done. But boom, there it is. We have purchased 30,261 Satoshis at a purchase price of $64,604.61. And that is going to bring our total stash up to 630,951 sats with an average cost basis of $50,717 per Bitcoin. And our stack is currently worth $407.62. And that is not too shabby considering we've invested only $320. Again, dollar cost averaging is a long-term play. Bitcoin goes up and Bitcoin goes down, sometimes by as much as 50, 60, 80%. So during the bear market, our stack will obviously not be worth as much as it is right now during the height of a bull run. But then again, if you follow plan B, this bull run still has a long way to go. So it's also going to be worth substantially more before this is all said and done as well. But really, it's not even worth evaluating your dollar cost average success or failure on just a few short months. We're really talking years here, 4 years, 10 years, the longer the better. But I think what we have managed to show so far is that even if you can only afford to invest $20 a week, it isn't too late, and that $20 will add up over time. So if nothing else, at least we have part of that pie now. You won't be a no-coiner when Bitcoin takes over the world one day. If we hit hyper-Bitcoinization, you won't be left out. And it's not too late to start. We didn't start till 2021, so if history repeats itself, or if history even rhymes, Bitcoin still has a few cycles to play out before we would reach hyper-Bitcoinization. But it's not as early as it used to be, so if you're going to get in, you need to do your research and figure out whether you want to make that leap. But it's, like they say, the best time to have purchased Bitcoin was 12 years ago, but the next best time is right now. And that's about all I'm going to get into for this episode. I just wanted to make sure we got our stack in, that we didn't miss out on a Wednesday, because the most important thing about dollar cost averaging is that you consistently buy the same amount of money on a regular basis, consistently. Hey, if you've been enjoying this podcast and you would like to help support us, there are a number of ways you can do so. Obviously, as we mentioned, if you do have the ability to tip on Twitter and you're not already, you can follow us, and we're at BTC Bulletin Pod on Twitter. So we'd appreciate the follow. And if you have the ability, you can tip us there. Also, if you don't have the Cash App already and you would like to use the Cash App to add to your stack, there is a referral link in the show notes. And if you sign up for Cash App and follow their terms and conditions, but if you do so by clicking on that referral link in the show notes, you'll get $5 free, and we'll get $5 free as well just for you signing up. Another way is I've written several books, but the one that is most relevant to this podcast is Understanding Bitcoin for Noobs, and it's available at both Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, and obviously by purchasing any of my books, that will help support the podcast. You can also support us directly through Anchor.com, and there's a support link in the show notes. And last but not least, we also include a Base32 Bitcoin address in the show notes where you can send us Bitcoin directly if you choose to do so. And if you'd like to contact me or give us any suggestions on what you'd like about the show or what you don't like about the show, again, we're at BTC Bulletin Pod on Twitter. And you can also contact me via email at bitcoinbulletin@protonmail.com. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Bitcoin Bulletin Podcast, DCA Wednesday edition. As usual, thank you for listening, and keep stacking those sats, you sexy sat stackers.